Welcome to the Darkstream, Voxday, voxday.blogspot.com, and unauthorized.tv. Thanks for tuning in. We're a little bit late tonight, but that's cool. Notifications, as I warned you, are not always going to be a full hour in advance. Sometimes I haven't decided what I'm going to talk about, or I'm just not in a place where I can get them sent out on time. But it looks like everybody figured it out. Armand, you're welcome. He said thanks for recommending Grosse Pointe Blank. It is it is definitely one of my favorite movies. It's probably not a great mystery to understand that I find that character relatively easy to relate to. I did something rather similar in disappearing immediately after graduation, with the exception of the fact that I never went back. So, anyhow, great movie. If you haven't seen Grosse Pointe Blank yet, I highly recommend it. So tonight, we're going to talk about why you should never trust a media whore. What's a media whore? Media whore is just a person who is narcissistic enough to want to be on camera all the time. They want to be in front of large groups of people all the time. They want to be performers. And media whores specifically are people that want to be on anything from a television show like, Strictly Dancing or Love Island, or to the cable news and CNN and Fox and that sort of thing. And it doesn't matter what their supposed ideology is. There's plenty of media whores on the right as well as on the left. And it's important to understand that whatever their purported ideology is, it is always and forever second, if that, to the media whore's desire to be in front of a camera. I was talking to my wife earlier tonight. We're talking about some of the midterm plans for unauthorized.tv, because we've just finished the filming of our first documentary, and we're going to be releasing it in 4 to 6 weeks or so, on unauthorized, of course. And if things are successful, if things work out, then we are going to start working on new documentaries, possibly multiple new documentaries. There's a lot of stuff that we have to talk about. But I don't want to be the presenter. I was actually talking about who, or not who, because we don't even have any individuals in mind, but what sort of people I wanted to be a presenter. And maybe we'll look for it. We want at least one male and at least one female presenter. And there are certain attributes that they have to have in terms of being good on camera, being easy on the eyes, being able to successfully communicate the ideas that are written out in the script. And yes, documentaries do have scripts. And so this is a concept that would be absolutely foreign to a media whore. They want to be in front of the camera. They can't imagine being in my position of communicating my thoughts verbally. I'm a writer. That's what I'm comfortable doing. That's what I prefer to do. That's where I'm going to stay. And I don't mind doing this, but that's what we're that's the direction I think that we're going to pursue. Um, and so when you look at the media horrors, there's a number of different sorts. What I was actually thinking about, and what inspired tonight's Darkstream is the this Joshua Harris guy. Now, I'd never heard of him, but apparently he was big starting about 20 years ago with this Christian evangelical purity movement. And so he was the one who wrote something about I kissed dating goodbye or something. And the thing is that some of the stuff that he's saying is I suppose, reasonable. I wouldn't know because I've never read the book. I've never paid any attention to that sort of thing. But it seems really strange because the culture is now a hookup culture. And so not dating is really kind of irrelevant. But the thing is that when you see people who look at their own life, make the story about themselves, and then reach universal conclusions on the basis of their own experience, you know you're dealing with somebody who's fundamentally narcissistic. That's exactly what Jordan Peterson does, you notice. I grew up in a small town and I found it stifling. So I left the small town as soon as I could, and then I became famous. We should do more scientific studies on why small towns produce great people like me. I mean, it's just totally nonsense. It's total nonsense. And so once you know that somebody is a media whore, you can reliably predict the curve of their trajectory through their career. I wasn't at all surprised to read that the guy was divorcing his wife. I was a little bit surprised to see that he had, despite being a Christian pastor, a pastor of a Christian church, he's now announced that he's not a Christian anymore. And as a number of the commenters on my blog noted, what's the over-under on how long it takes before he comes out as gay? It's all but inevitable at this point in time. Atomized narcissists, exactly. And these are the kind of people that you've got to stop paying attention to. Once you determine that somebody is a media whore, and that's not the same as somebody who is a committed entertainer. I mean, there's some overlap between the committed entertainer and the media whore. Somebody like Owen thrives on being on stage. Someone like Prince loves to be performing. Prince was a maniac. He used to play a full concert, and then he would take his band and go and play at a small club, and then he would invite people back to his house in Shakopee or wherever, or not Shakopee, wherever it was, but down in the south of the city, Paisley Park, and play a third show that night. I mean, the guy lived to perform. Owen finds it very frustrating not being able to book theaters and stuff because he has, a drive to perform. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. If you're a performer, if that's what your gifts are, if that's what you do well, then that's what you want to do. That you should be doing it. But that's different than the media whore, and there's a great line, there's many great lines actually, in the book Woebegone Boy by Garrison Keillor. Garrison Keillor has obviously a number of issues, and I was never a big listener of his radio show, but he's actually one of the better novelists of his generation. He's wildly underrated, in my opinion. And it's interesting because at one point he has a character saying to his would-be performer son, the inclination to perform is no indication of the possession of talent. And so, this is funny. Peterson became famous from a video someone else posted. You pretty dumb. No, Peterson's been a media whore since the beginning. Peterson has been a media whore since he was a would-be media whore since he was in junior high school. Peterson became famous because he was selected by a very powerful media influencer in Canada who repeatedly threw him in front of the camera and pushed him very hard for years. And they finally got a breakthrough with that orchestrated interview. So, all of these guys, Jordan Peterson, Ben Shapiro, Tommy Robinson, Joshua Harris, there are literally dozens of them. All of them primarily exist to be talking on the camera in order to feed their narcissism, despite the fact that they've got nothing to say. No, I don't think Prince was a narcissist. At least, he was narcissistic at times, but no, he definitely doesn't fall into this category. Cernovich doesn't fall into this category. Anyone who spends a significant amount of their time rejecting attention does not fall into this category. And so, again, I don't care that these people exist. It doesn't bother me that they exist. It doesn't even bother me that much that people like them and want to pay attention to them. It's no bigger deal that someone pays attention to Jordan Peterson than Kim Kardashian or Tom Brady. It doesn't. They're all about equally as serious. I would take anything that Kim Kardashian says. Not that I've actually heard anything that she's ever said. I literally have no idea. I know what the girl who imitates her on Saturday Night Live sounds like, but I don't know what Kim Kardashian herself actually sounds like. But whatever she says, I would take it just as seriously as anything that Jordan Peterson said. There's no difference. It's all about entertainment. It's all about propaganda. It's all about serving the narrative. And Ace Toxic says Joe Rogan is the super cuck auto-believer and first responder for the official narrative. That's actually an interesting way of putting it. I like that. First responder for the official narrative. It's really interesting. Legionnaire Bear says, Peterson fans are at least seeking truth. They just found a false prophet, so to speak. I'm not entirely certain. I mean, I understand where you're coming from, but I think that a lot of Peterson's fans are gammas who want an excuse to keep doing what they're doing. You know, gammas don't want to change. They know on some level that what they're doing is not working. That's why they're bitter. But they try to feel like they're going to change. They try to feel like they're trying to move on. And so that's why I'm a little bit dubious that they're genuinely seeking truth. I think a lot of them are actually seeking to avoid truth. So, by the way, there's a new emoji if you like. Try typing Reb if you're a member, and then you can see that. John B says, my experience is that the Peterson fans seeking truth, left at the same time that Owen left. More or less. I mean, some did before, some did after. There we go. So, yeah, we got rebel in an emoji. So, but another way that you can tell the media whore is that they've often written 1 or 2 books, and that's all. Because what that means is that they don't really have that many ideas to communicate. So they write a little bit, and then they use that as a foundation for their real career, which is, of course, making noise in front of the camera. And so, again, nothing wrong with that. If you don't have more than a book in you, you shouldn't write a second book. That's fine. But it is an example that they are more interested in whoring for the media than they are in actually transmitting ideas. So, but see, this is again the nonsensical narrative. Peterson got popular because he stood up to the LGBTQ cult. No, he didn't. First of all, he doesn't stand up to it. And secondly, that's not why he got popular. He got popular because he was relentlessly pushed by the people that wanted him to become a gatekeeper for Christians and nationalists. Welcome, Kenny Fofo. And so, everybody's trying to say, oh, it was because of this, it's because of this. No, there's not a single causal event. That's what the media narrative wants you to believe. They want you to believe that it's all organic. I assure you, there's nothing organic about it. The last son of Ivan says, I feel everything Vox says apropos of this topic comes from bitterness as a consequence of his not being famous. See, that's a classic gamma perspective because you want to be famous. I do not want to be famous. I don't even want the small amount of notoriety that I have. I never chose this. This is not something that I sought. I got caught out because I started writing about politics before the internet became dominant. And so all of my stuff got transferred to the internet and boom, that was it. So it was never a choice for me. Welcome, Thomas Parker. I mean, let me give you an example. Our record label, Wax Trax, desperately wanted us to go on tour. They wanted us to go on tour with Nine Inch Nails. They wanted us to go on tour with KMFDM. They were begging us to go on tour. Welcome, Enfield Bear. And we just didn't want to. No, see, again, Mr. Jones, he says, see, again, you guys need to stop projecting. Of course you look for fame. You were in a band. We turned down tours of the USA and tours of Europe because we didn't want to do it. We didn't enjoy it. What we liked to do was record in the studio. We just wanted to make music. That was all. And we did. You know, I mean, it's always a bit funny to me when people are trying to say, oh, you're just envious and jealous. I'm like, okay, I have 3 Billboard top 40 club hits to my credit, a 6 million selling game, 6 million copy selling game. You know, my book, I was literally the best selling political philosopher on the planet for 2 years. That's more fame than I wanted or needed. You know, I turned down my opportunity to become a media whore. They used to ask me to go on Fox all the time. In fact, within the last 7 days, I've had both the BBC and Wired magazine trying to get me to talk to them. It's not of interest. So you need to learn that not everybody is a whore most of the time. And you can say, well, why are you sitting here on talking to us on YouTube? You know why. Because my strongest supporters and my strongest backers heavily encouraged me to move into video because they felt that the ideas that I was communicating in my books were important, and they wanted me to, they knew that most people were never going to encounter them because we're living in a post-literate society. You can't communicate ideas effectively, people that are capable of communicating some of the ideas that I come up with. So, you know, it's fine that, you know, other people have massively larger viewerships. It's fine that other people sell massively more books. I mean, the thing that astonishes me about these bizarre accusations is that there are people whose success I envy. You know whose success I envy the most? Umberto Eco. My goal was to be able to write books that were as good as Name of the Rose and Foucault's Pendulum. And then I saw Dan Brown do his ripoff of Foucault's Pendulum and actually have a lot of success. Now, I could have done that. In fact, my books are better than Dan Brown's. I mean, my books are better than Dan Brown's by the determination of the original publisher of both of us. The biggest mistake they ever made was they kept me and they cut him. But, you know, it's the astonishing thing is that some of these people, and I guess actually what we're seeing here is that see, look at the projection in these guys. You're a nobody. Who cares what some random person on the internet thinks? You know, it's just not relevant. You know, but obviously he would have been upset if somebody else said that to him. Gammas, it's all about projection. You know, that's why they're so easy to identify, because they project their feelings on you. John Yossart said, If Umberto Eco is so successful, how come he's dead? Yeah, that's funny. Um, so let's get to some of the super chats here. I missed several from yesterday. Um, how long does it take for a gamma to become delta? I would say probably 4 to 5 years in order for them to become actually reliably delta. What do you think of Edgar Allan Poe as a writer? I think he's one of the greatest American writers. I've read his, I was reading his complete works last year, which was interesting. I haven't actually finished them because he has this intellectual tour de force that's very strange and very difficult to read, and I need to actually force myself to really focus on it in order to get through it. But he's a wonderful writer. Monica, we got that one. Sean Wu says, "Hey Vox, not long discovered David Irving, and he's a fascinating character, but is he credible? I don't know. And if not, can you recommend me anyone else?" I'm not really into historical revisionism, especially not World War II era historical revisionism where you've got these competing narratives. So I'm not the guy to ask about those things. Eamblicus2 says, "Vox, I read your inflation debate. You were saying inflation may not necessarily happen because credit contracts, but some suffer very high inflation, such as South American countries. Why is this?" It's because the US dollar is the reserve currency. So the rules are totally different for every other currency versus the US dollar. You know, what we're talking about in that debate relates to the US dollar, not to the various other economies. Major Max is a Vox. I hear that people that follow you feel a crawling discomfort in the Denver airport. A couple people have said that. I've never been to that Denver airport, so I couldn't testify one way or the other. But it certainly does seem to have some demonic themed murals, and there seems to be a fair amount of weirdness going on there. Clay Chandler says, "Shapiro always talks about how he wishes he was invited into the den of witches known as The View. Classic media whore." And then he says, "Shapiro, my mistake." Exactly. No, Ben Shapiro is absolutely a classic media whore. He was raised to be a media whore by his father. They were putting him on television when he was a little kid. So, you know, he's basically the pseudo-intellectual equivalent of a abused Disney child star. And probably literally. Boss Theory says, what I can say is that human beings were never meant to live as dense as they do in cities. It drives people insane. I think you're probably right. You know, city life is not conducive to health. In fact, one of the notable things about modern civilization and public health is that for the first time, people were able to live in cities without dying like rats. Many people don't realize that modern life expectancies aren't any much longer than they were in the Roman era. There's plenty of examples of Romans who lived into their 70s and 80s. Plenty of examples. But they all lived in the countryside. The difference between life in the countryside and life in the city was often it could be as much as a difference of 40 years. You know, the problem was that the diseases would just sweep through there, often related to the problems of sanitation and so forth. So city life is not good for you. If you live in a city, I would encourage you to get out. There's many, many problems with it. Dr. Zume's feeling weak tonight. Have to feed the super chat addiction. Any Nordic wines you recommend? I know little about wines and don't even know if it's possible to make it in the north. No, 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 absolutely not. I recommend Spanish wines. I recommend Italian wines. I'm not even a big fan of French wines, to be honest with you. Um, you know, they used to make some. They're always saying, "Oh, well, there's some wines made in Minnesota that are in Stillwater that are really good." we went we went to along about 20 years ago, maybe more. My wife and I went to Stillwater, and we spent like a weekend there for our anniversary. Just it's a nice little town, or it was a nice little town then, and we walked around and we came to a place where they had a store that was for a local vineyard, and we thought, oh, we'll try it. It was amazingly bad. I mean, like one step above Night Train bad. And I know about Night Train because I played on my college rugby team for a season. Um, Portuguese wine is very good. I'll have to try it. I've never. I mean, I've probably had it, but not that I've ever paid attention to particularly. Um, is Greek wine disgusting? I don't know that I've ever had Greek wine. I've actually had a halfway decent Israeli wine. That wasn't too bad. I've only recently found out Revelo P. Oliver was a leading figure in the National Review and the John Birch Society. He wrote the book America's Decline: The Education of a Conservative. Yeah, you must have read Unz's article on the purge of the American intellectuals, and it's really amazing if you look at um, the problems that we have today. A lot of them stem from this purge of intellectuals that took place in the post-war period. In fact, that whole Howard Zinn history thing, it's basically all in line with the Jewish redefinition of America. You know, and then that's what it should be called, not the people's history of the United States. It's just the revisionist Jewish history of it, and it's a total attack on what America was and is. Um, and there's a lot of writers and authors who were hugely popular in the early 20th century that no one's ever heard of. They've been completely wiped out of history. Okay, if you're going to talk to me, I've already made it very clear I'm not interested in internet drama. So somebody who's trying to tell me that Owen's lying to people and what do I think about that, I'm not interested at all. Don't care in the slightest, and if you're going to bring it up, you're going to be banned. Let's see. Christopher G says, considering the concept of media whores, are there any Hollywood celebs who you believe are redeemable or aren't yet corrupted by the system? Well, we've been told that 10% of them are decent. I've heard good things about James Woods. He's also very smart. I've heard good things about Vince Vaughn. Um, I had heard some things about Chris Pratt, but lately uh, he looks like he's bought into the system. So who knows? Um, Cuss White says Howard Zinn portrayed Indians as so dumb they didn't know a knife was sharp. Yeah, interesting. Um, yeah, let's see. Should multinational corporations be illegal? Probably. It certainly hasn't been good for anybody. So, um, let me see if I made sure I'm caught up on the super chats there. All right, good. We're caught up. Yeah. So the thing is that it doesn't matter, what people want. It doesn't matter, um, if they want to be famous and stuff. The point is you need to understand what their motivations are if you're going to take them seriously. That's why I think it's a big mistake to look at me and try to find if you assign my motivation incorrectly, then you're going to completely fail to understand what's going on. And if you fail to correctly assign the motivation to others, you're not going to be able to fully understand what they do. So, who's the most based author from 1970 to 1990? Maybe Tom Clancy. Welcome, Brandon O'Neill, another new member. But the thing that you have to be careful of, somebody saying that Chris Pratt shouted enthusiastically, "God is real." That's fine and all, but which God? When people talk about God, you need to learn to be specific. Are they talking about God the Father of Jesus Christ? Or are they talking about Quetzalcoatl? Are they talking about, when they talk about Our Lady? Are they Catholics talking about Mary? Or are they syncretists talking about Lady Death? Satan is a deceiver. And the way that he deceives is he makes you think one thing when the actual intention is something else. And that's why it's so important to be forthright about the name of Jesus Christ, because that's the one name that they don't seem to be able to abide. And we're told that there's power in that name, and there does seem to be, just by the reaction of the people on the other side to it. I've never seen Steven Crowder, so the extent of my knowledge of Steven Crowder was Milo and I were out with Space Bunny and Cerno and his now wife, and we were talking about the fact that conservatives are so hapless in the media. And Milo said that the only person who seemed to have much of an ability to reach younger people was Steven Crowder. And so that was the only, I've literally never seen anything that he's done. I've never watched the show. I don't even really know much about him. So that's why I always think it's a bit funny when Owen's going on about him, because I just don't care. I know nothing about him. See, Paraplegic Bear, do you think Yahweh was changed to Lord so Christians would worship the name of Baal instead of Yahweh? It's just the kind of sneaky thing they would do. Hang on. Sorry about that. Had to sneeze. Figured you didn't need to see that. Chiseled Red Man. Wants to know if we can get 1 day a week or month, like the good old days where you do one stream where you ignore the chat and go full hour focused on a single topic. Probably not, because if you notice, when I go a stream that's focused on a single topic, it's usually only about 20 minutes. An hour is a awful long time to focus on a single subject. You know, I'm capable of addressing what I need to say in 20 minutes. You know, so going on an hour, I think, would be beating a dead horse. But yeah, I can do that. Huh. Yes, I've read The Crowd. It's pretty much on point. It was a long time ago, though. It was like back in college. Where does the demon Lilith figure into Satan's plan? I have no idea. Considering applying to jobs in Spain. Obviously, Barcelona life is great. I'll have to ask my Spanish friends about that. I don't know. You could if you talk books and authors. Yeah, that's probably true. I have a feeling that when we the upcoming book review for the book review members is going to be is going to go long. Yeah, it's like 2:15 or something. What do you think of Christopher Nolan's Batman series? I don't. Who's your favorite rock band? These days, to be honest, I probably listen to... Well, the bands that I listen to the most are probably Disturbed, Bandmade, Baby Metal, and it would have been 21 Pilots if their most recent album had been good, but I didn't like most of it very much. So my all-time favorite, Desert Island CD, whatever you call it, is definitely David Sylvian. So those are my musical tastes. Are the Arctic Monkeys rock? I have no idea. I think I've heard like one song by them ever. Why did most of the monarchies disappear after World War II? Because getting rid of them was part of the program. Which songs on the 21's Pilots? I like the Chemical one, the one called Chemical or something. If you stuck with music, would you have surpassed Deadmau5? I would not have, but our band would have. I don't. If you have any idea what the rest of my band is doing in music, you would understand that that's not even remotely an outrageous claim. More people listen to our drummer's music than listen to Deadmau5, because he does all the soundtracks for all the epic games. Fortnite, Gears of War, all that sort of thing. That's him. That's Mike. And Dan's been doing major movie soundtracks. I know he had tracks in Alita Battle Angel and Captain Marvel. And Paul is the best of us, So, what type of docs would you like to produce in terms of subject, history based or mixed? A mix. I think the one that we're doing now is going to surprise a lot of people. I'd like to do some on economics. I'd like to do some on history. And so, we'll see how it goes. But if we're able to stumble onto a profitable model of producing them, then we'll just Tliskin is having fun. What we need today, thinking back to when Beck predicted normalization of pedophilia, I think that there was a time. I mean, most people mean well when they start out. Most people have principles when they start out. But you keep getting offered opportunities to sacrifice your principles or to support the narrative. I got them. Owen didn't really get them. He just crossed the line and was, told to shape up. I know a number of other people that, were given big opportunities, but they had to show that they were willing to fall in line. And it's never, just so you understand, it's never a big deal. It's never, like, for example, in my case, and this is very apropos considering the topic tonight, it was when I was signed to write the book Media Whores. And they came back and they said, well, we thought you were just going to focus on the left. But you've got chapters in here on Michelle Malkin and Bill O'Reilly and what are you doing? I said, well, it's a book about media whores, and there are media whores on the right and media whores on the left. And they literally paid me to not write the book. And after that, I was, persona non grata with all of the conservative publishing houses. So if I had played along, then they would have published the book. Then I would have been, appearing on Fox News talking about the book, because there was this whole thing they were planning to do, whole campaign, and Fox was tied into it somehow. I don't recall exactly, but that was what, when they decided this cannot continue, because they told me, well, we showed it to, Judge Napolitano, and we showed it to a couple of other people at Fox, and they just said this is not acceptable. And at the time, I was naive enough to be thinking, why are you showing it to people from another company? What do they have to do with it? And this was all after, the editor liked it. The editor, had signed the contract and everything was going ahead. He liked what I delivered. But the higher ups put the kibosh on it. So, would Peterson pay you not to write a Jordanetics 2? I don't think it's that big a deal. I think it's probably personally traumatic, but the book has not dented his popularity. His 15 minutes of fame are running out. That's why he's trying all these different, universities and this and that, the other thing. But apparently Beck wasn't so good when he first started out. I've never paid much attention to Beck. So once I detect that somebody is a deceiver or a media whore or whatever, I literally stop paying any attention to them. I don't watch them. I don't read them. I don't listen to people tell me about them. I have no interest. So, User 13 nails it. Malkin comes off as a grifter. She is a grifter. Candace Owens is her less interesting, less attractive clone. Absolutely. Would you debate Peterson? Yeah, of course. Are you still going to do a book review on Ben Shapiro's The Right Side of History? Yes. I tend to agree with what Ralph is saying here. Ralph says, Peterson is in the home stretch of his influence. They're looking for their next fraud to push as we speak. Yeah, I think the next one is going to be uh, the next fraud that they're going to push on conservatives is probably going to be a black or Hispanic man. That would be my guess. Oh my gosh. Well, it looks like I made the right call about Tommy Robinson. Tommy Robinson's latest documentary is called Shalom, and his team are now attacking real nationalists who left his movement and are exposing them as Zionists. Yeah, he's part of the whole uh, national conservatism thing that Yoram Hazony and this Edmund Burke Institute are trying to push. It's the neo-clowns. Tommy Robinson is a neo-clown. And they're trying to push fake nationalism, paper nationalism, citizenship. They're trying to push that to replace nationalism. Why? Because if you control the paper, then you control everything. They can control paper nationalism. They can't control real nationalism. Or a gay one-eyed pirate. Yeah, but he's already a politician. We're talking about, who the next uh, great hope of conservatives is. And so because they're trying to stop nationalism, the obvious next choice is somebody who isn't white, who claims to be a real true blue American. And so they're going to try to find somebody who is of color in order to try to, again, gatekeep the nationalists. That's the whole idea, is to prevent white Christian Americans in the USA and proper nationalists in all the various European nations. They're trying to prevent them from becoming a strong and unified movement. So they're just trying to constantly chip people off of that, divide and conquer. If they can pull off all the civic nationalists and all the non-Christians and so forth, then their task becomes more viable. Thomas Parker says most people don't understand how calculated all this stuff is. Yeah, exactly. Taffy says a Dinesh D'Souza type. Yeah, I mean Dinesh is too old. It's not going to be him. He's too old and too tainted. But it's going to be somebody like that. Legionnaire Bear says, when you become king, can you please order Shapiru into the Colosseum with Peterson thrown a bone style? That would be hilarious. Moose says Tommy is a gatekeeping POS but doesn't deserve what's happening to him. I think that you don't understand that those two things are related. What's happening to him is intended to build up his credentials to the nationalists. It's not going to be Tulsi Gabbard. It's not going to be a woman, and it's not going to be a Democrat. They need somebody who can appeal to white, young Christian men who are inclined to want to defend America. So they need to break that up somehow. And one of the easiest ways they can break it up is by getting people to focus on civic nationalism. They were against civic nationalism, but now they're for it because what they're really against is nationalism. No, I mean, I'm not the guy, obviously. There's no way. It's somebody that that we haven't really heard of yet, and then suddenly they'll just become everywhere. Do you think Italy is close to pulling out of the euro? Reasonably close. It's not imminent, but probably in the next 5 to 8 years. A gay black veteran would be ideal. I don't think it'll be a gay veteran, but probably it could be a black veteran. So anyhow, well, that's all I've got for today. So thanks for tuning in. New members, please email me if you want to receive notifications. I don't get your email just from you becoming a member, but I appreciate it. We're going to start something new on Unauthorized TV. And in fact, if you go to Owen Shorts, you'll see that he's begun a new series of sorts with Duran and Duran, the new alpacas. We were talking and kicking around some ideas, and I think it's going to be really funny. It's going to be exclusive to Unauthorized, and keep an eye out for that. So have a good evening. This is the Darkstream. I'm Vox Day.